Good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for being here. We've got a fantastic panel starting off. We have Lisa Earnhardt, the EVP of Medical Devices from Abbott, and we have Pete Arduini, the CEO of GE Healthcare. I'm Barry Rosenberg. I'm a senior partner with BCG based in Chicago. I lead BCG's healthcare practice in the Americas. Most of my work is in medical device clients. And I'm a physician. Some of you may know I trained at University of Michigan in surgery before coming to BCG. Before we jump in, I just wanted to introduce our panelists in a little bit more detail. So I'll start with Lisa. Lisa's the EVP of Medical Devices at Abbott, where she has oversight for cardiology, neuromodulation, and diabetes. Prior to joining Abbott, she was the CEO of Intersect ENT. She's very active here at AdvaMed. She's a board member at AdvaMed, and she is the most recent chair of the Technology and Regulatory Committee. And Lisa is joined by Pete Arduini, who is the CEO and president of GE Healthcare. At GE, he oversees the imaging business, the ultrasound business, the PCS business, and the pharmaceutical diagnostics business. Pete, prior to joining GE, was the CEO of Integra, and he currently as well serves as a board member here at AdvaMed. He's super active at AdvaMed, and he is also a board member of Bristol Myers Squibb. So it's a fantastic panel. Thank you all for being here. We're going to talk about Gen AI and innovation, and maybe with that, I'll kick us off. So Pete, maybe we'll start with you. I think a ton of discussion the last couple of days on AI and Gen AI. I think not everyone in the audience may know that GE Healthcare has 40 products on the market today that are AI enabled. And so I think with that as kind of a backdrop, I think people would be particularly interested to hear from you as you look to the future with Gen AI. What are one or two of the applications that you are most excited about with Gen AI here in the next year or two?
Yeah, Barry, thanks for having us up. Look, I think there's obviously there's been a lot of good discussions this week about applications and approaches. Our first journey has been on this focus of integrated machine learning models in actually the products. And so if you think of our MRs, our CTs, our ultrasound, all of them have had, in the last couple of years, integrated capabilities that have brought new outcomes. So either installed base upgrades, capabilities that way. But I think when you step back from where all this is heading and you look at, a hospital, we've talked about this, has about 50 petabytes of data. About half of that is about imaging. A lot of it's other data. A lot of it is not actually reachable or usable at this point in time. And so I think one of the things that we're very excited about, that we're working on as well as others, is how do you make that data accessible and turn it into insights? And in many cases, it's multimodality. It would be multiple imaging modalities, pathology data, surgical data, genomic information, and be able to make sense of that. And this idea of having foundational models that actually can learn, as opposed to trying to train these all individual components, to me, I think that's the part that's super exciting that we're going to see here in the next, 3, 4, 5 years.
Thanks for sharing that. And I think a lot of energy and excitement around the power of AI in imaging and other applications. Maybe staying on that theme of application, Lisa, we'll turn to you. Abbott recently reported that 6 million patients are using the Libre device for diabetes and diabetes management. And so maybe there's an opportunity for you to reflect a little bit. How do you see Gen AI changing or impacting diabetes management here?
Yeah, I would say that it is a transformative time in healthcare, and AI will play a major role, not just for diabetes, but across the entire healthcare spectrum, both internal in terms of driving efficiencies, as well as externally in our products, and also driving workplace efficiencies, workflow efficiencies with our customers in the healthcare system. So specifically on diabetes, you had mentioned our Freestyle Libre device, which, just by way of background, it is a continuous continuous glucose monitor for people with diabetes. So typically people with diabetes need to measure their sugar levels, and they typically have done it historically by pricking their finger multiple times a day. Now they're able to simply wear a sensor on the back of the arm, and the data gets automatically streamed to their phone, and they're able to see, without any, stepping away to get their blood sugar measured without any disruption to their daily life. They get that information if their sugars are going up or down. They're getting alerts, all kinds of benefits in helping them actively managing their sugar. So as you think about AI and the applications there, just with Libre and the over 5 million people who rely on this product every day, we have over 25 terabytes of data. It is mind-boggling, right? You just think of that potential, and that is made up of billions of glucose data points. The time that they took the glucose measurement, the activities they were doing, and you think about how do we link that data with all the other things they're doing, whether it be taking insulin, whether it be activity levels, sleep. There's a lot of other things we could pull in there, and you think about the power of that data and how do we translate that data into information and ultimately actionable insights to really make personalized recommendations for an individual and helping them live their best lives. So that is the path. We're on it today. It is already happening. So this is not new, but we still are very much scratching the surface at Abbott, I think, as an industry in terms of the potential benefits that AI and machine learning will do to both drive efficiencies in healthcare as well as improve overall outcomes.
Thank you, Pete and Lisa. Those are both great. I feel like sometimes in conferences like this, it's like a little bit of hype or the oversell. And to me, the examples, particularly in imaging and monitoring, and this example in diabetes, are both very credible and relatable. And I think for me, you can kind of see it over the horizon, and you could see how that has the real potential to impact patient care. You need engineers and scientists to develop these products. And so some of you might have seen that a month ago, Wall Street Journal had an article on the $900,000 a year AI analyst at Netflix. And that kind of caught my eye. And granted, not all of us are Netflix, if you will. And I think it provokes, we've got a lot of discussion on AI and Gen AI here at this conference. I think it provokes a thoughtful discussion around talent and attracting talent. And I think both of you, have a lot that you could share in that regard. Maybe I would start with you, Lisa, just from being in the Bay Area in terms of how you're attracting talent to med device.
Yeah, so 6 of my medical device businesses are in the San Francisco Bay Area. So you might imagine I have a little bit of competition for talent. The great news is there's incredible capabilities right there in our backyard. So the challenge and opportunity for us is really telling our story about the incredible impact we have as an industry, the chance to really work on products that make a difference. And that is one thing I recognize, especially as we've come out of the pandemic. I think everyone's health has become more and more important, the importance of health. I mean, it was always there, but I don't think everyone actually realized it. It wasn't part of our daily conversation. And so I realized from my perspective, there's always comp and benefits and how do we make sure we're competitive there, but it's really the purpose-driven work that we do and the pace in which we work, which has just continued to pick up just given the very, quick pace of innovation in our field. So I think there's a lot of folks who are looking to get into the space because you think about like areas to make an impact in the world, and that's global at scale. It's in the med tech industry.
Yeah, Lisa, I echo your comments. And so I would say this idea in this conference, I think over time will evolve to even represent more of why, we have students here you probably have seen on the way in, but to have people understand this in many cases can be the head of the spear of some of the biggest transformations that are going to happen in any sector. And undoubtedly, the best good that's going to happen is going to be happening with AI implemented in healthcare. And so our purpose discussion is everything. It's one of the reasons we spent a lot of time talking about as a new company. Yes, we're a 100-year-old company, but we're a new spun out company is about, having a more bold purpose. And I think this idea of finding people in the space that have done great things in AI, and no disrespect to music or videos or paying modules and all that. It's great. We need all that. But that's different than saving a life. And I think, and when you position the point that the next 10 years could be the greatest changes in healthcare any of us have seen in the whole last 100 combined, who wouldn't want to be part of this? And so I think we as a collective have to do more of that. It's tough. And I just give some practical things. We've created a different class of compensation for certain people coming in. If I'm bringing AI people in, I didn't have a lot of legacy AI people from the last 10 years. So that's an easier one. But obviously, as you get into software engineers and stuff, there's a line there that you have to think about. And, I think Taha's in the front row here, joined us coming in from Amazon. I mean, partnering to get your services and capabilities is huge. I mean, even a company like GE or Abbott, you're not going to build all this. And then obviously through the right smart acquisitions, you can also bring some great talent into the org. But I think, as you said, Lisa, this point about purpose is super important. And we as a broader industry need to do more so we get our unfair share of talent coming out of school saying, I want to be there because I want to make a difference.
And I would say it's not just we, like Pete and myself, but it's all of us is telling that story, right? Because it's so compelling. I concur. The next 10 years are going to be just transformative for us as an industry. And what a great place to be.
Thanks for sharing that, guys. I love the comments on purpose, and hopefully everyone's energized by them. And I think it is energizing to see Taha here in the audience. For folks that didn't notice, AdvaMed, I think yesterday announced a new committee, if you will, a new task force, a new entity around digital, which to me is really powerful, bringing technology native folks into med device. So I think you could kind of see the horizon of where we're going with that. Pete, I know Taha is a cardiologist. Maybe I'll use that to transition to cardiology. You guys are both GE.
I'll give him the mic then, maybe.
Yeah, GE is very active in cath labs, in ultrasound, in CT angiogram. Abbott obviously is making stents and pacemakers and MitraClip. So I think it could be, maybe as our next topic, maybe you guys could each talk a little bit about how you see AI or Gen AI impacting cardiology and cardiac care pathways and outcomes for cardiac patients. Maybe we start with you, Pete.
Yeah, I would say first broadly, I mean, we're on a journey as a company to be a much more of, instead of a device company, a care pathway company. So it's a pretty obvious statement to say someone has an electrical issue versus a structured heart issue or coronary artery disease. What you do is very different. How our devices work together are different. And so we're aligning that way. It just so happens that the data streams and how they go along are now being able to be enabled with cloud computing, with what we're doing with AI. And so we're picking very clear disease states within certain care pathways to say, these devices we want to work this way, these interfaces we want to work this way, and this data flow we want to happen. Ideally, we want to end up with as a framework of a single pane of glass. So this idea of all of that information on one screen, so that a decision maker can actually make that decision, first with the right representation of the longitudinal data, second with how recommendations or standards come up that can be missed, but ultimately the application of AI to actually help assist where do you go next. So, I mean, that's part of it. What it also drives is just excitement in certain device areas to either double down on certain features and capabilities that we might not have seen before, because this was a keystone in this pathway that we might not have thought we needed to partner with somebody or did something different. So it's still early innings, but we're quite excited about this convergence of disease state thinking and the digital integration together.
Yeah, and I'll build on that because we similarly looking across the patient pathways and really trying to understand the needs there and really the pain points for our customers. So we're looking at it both in terms of how do we both on the diagnosis and the assessment as well as the treatment. So on the diagnosis side, one of the biggest issues we have globally is access and ensuring the patients and the people who need our devices actually get access to those devices. And what is just startling is the number of people who are actually, even in the United States, in our healthcare system today, for whatever reason isn't getting referred or isn't being seen by a specialist who could potentially treat a structural issue or treat an abnormal heart rhythm. And in this case, we actually have a system which is called, I won't get into the details of it, I'll just keep it high level, where we actually identify patients working in concert with healthcare systems, helping put some data analytics and predictive analytics around people within their system that actually could potentially benefit and help expediting and streamline that care pathway. So that's one way to solve those issues in terms of increasing access. And then on the other side is on treatment, right? And, once again, we have a incredible burden in our healthcare system where we have shortage of healthcare workers. That was pre-existing to the pandemic. I just don't think we all knew about it or recognized the issues. But as we all are getting older and sicker, the aging population was always going to create an issue with a shortage. And the pandemic just accelerated that in a significant way. And so I hear a lot from our customers, like, we need to be able to do things more efficiently, and ultimately more efficiently in driving better outcomes. So one of the things that we're doing on the treatment side is something, I'll take the PCI or people who have their coronaries blocked and they need a treatment. We actually have an AI-driven algorithm that's developed in combination with our imaging platform called OCT. It's called Ultron, and it uses data and images from tens of thousands of people who've undergone procedures, and it helps physicians be better physicians. So we're giving them the information they need to say, hey, based on this image, this is where the calcium is. This is where you need to place the stent. This is the size of stent. So hopefully this actually becomes an enabler for them, not only delivering better outcomes, but doing it in a more efficient fashion. And so those are just some of the examples across all of cardiovascular. We could spend all day talking just cardiology.
Thank you, guys. Those are inspiring for people to hear. I think even for everyone in the audience, this idea of, as medtech industry, we've sort of shown up and sold products, and we force a lot of the integration onto the clinicians in the hospital. So in this example, you guys are ticking through CT scanners and ultrasound machines and cath labs and stents, and the vision of having that work together as a system, I think is really powerful. Okay, maybe what we'll do now is I'm going to transition us to the second major topic in our panel, which is around innovation more broadly. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you guys that I think will be of broad interest is around the balance of internal versus external innovation. Each of your companies has done some pretty meaningful M&A recently. I think Abbott, you guys have bought CSI and Bigfoot. GE recently acquired BK Medical and Caption Health. So you both clearly have a role of external innovation or M&A in your innovation pipelines. Talk to the group a little bit about how you trade off external M&A versus internal R&D in your innovation pipelines. Whoever would like to start. Yeah.
Yeah. I think our primary focus is on organic innovation because we're organized. I have 8 different businesses across cardiovascular, diabetes, neuromodulation, which is chronic pain and movement disorders. My expectation for those teams is they are deep with their customers. They understand the disease states. And so ultimately we should be leaders on innovation, but that isn't always the case. And so as I think about a couple of the most recent acquisitions we've done, one of which was in peripheral vascular. So that's a growth market, huge unmet needs, and one that we felt we were better served to go outside. So we recently acquired CSI, which is a leader in atherectomy. So it's a direct fit right into our bag. And then we allow to have a full suite of products for people in particular with peripheral disease. And we've done additional partnerships with Surmodics with a drug-coated balloon, but then we also will have our own bioresorbable drug-eluting stent for below-the-knee disease. So it's a mix of everything. And then also we just did a acquisition that just closed a couple of weeks ago at our diabetes team, where we're a leader on glucose monitors, but we did not have a play in connected pens and insulin delivery, which a lot of people with diabetes rely on every day. And it's hard. It's complex. We're asking a lot of people to do math like many times a day. And I love math. I bet a bunch of you do, right? But it's a big burden for people with diabetes. And so what we have is acquired a company called Bigfoot, which helps make that that information much easier to interpret and take action on. And so those are kind of some of the enabling technologies.
Yeah, and I would just add, I would say, so again, coming in new to GE in the last 18 months, a big part was how do you get the innovation engine really going? Because as we all know, nothing happens overnight. It's at minimum a 3-year journey. Some of the products, if they're PMA, are 5-year journey. So getting a really clear road mapping process to say what has to happen in each of the products, what has to happen in these care pathways, and getting the think time to say, yes, this is the map. Not about are you going to build it or you're going to buy it, but this is the map. And really having the incentive system set up that if you buy it versus build it, someone's not going to fight you internally, which as simple as that sounds, many of you may know that's a challenge within itself. I think the second part of this is getting an incubator headset going on in the company where you may make small investments in an organization to be on a board, to be involved, to learn about that capability that you may not have, which may lead to an acquisition. That's not always been our forte, but it's an important part of that evolution. And honestly, the right discipline structure around within our org. I mean, we now treat R&D and our investment growth dollars as job one. So we all know the easiest thing to cut if you have to cut money is R&D. Why? Because it's typically discrete and it's a program. SG&A is hidden everywhere. You got to fight to make sure you save that. And that's part of what we've been trying to drive. I'd say the trade-off between the two comes down to is as we broaden our lens about disease states, you start finding areas in the seams that weren't obvious, right? If I just build CT scanners, guess what I think about buying? Parts for CT scanners. If I think about a disease state that connects things, I say, wow, well, maybe I can partner with Abbott or this company or do this, or maybe we buy that, and it opens our lens. And so what we do, Brian's here, we every week, myself with a core group, we have an M&A call. Many times it's about, what happened in the market, what's going on. But the point is to stay really focused on what's happening in the marketplace and being able to look at 30, 40, 50 things that are going at any time, because somewhere they're going to go someplace. And that may actually change the balance of the decisions of do you make it or do you buy it?
Thank you. Thank you. That's great. I think both of you talked about being grounded in patient and unmet need and kind of that balance of internal, external. On the internal side, both of your companies spend over $1 billion a year on R&D in med device. How should we think about the outcomes or the return or the value of that innovation spend? And I would value each of you riffing a little bit on that. I feel like a lot of us have grown up where we define innovation as an FDA approval, or we define it as an R&D % of sales. How do you think about good innovation and a return on your $1 billion of spend?
I mean, I'll start. I mean, it first starts with if you have strategic goals of growth here and margin here, that should be your number one lever of getting it there. And as we all know, within this space, one of the things that drives the most value is top line growth. Obviously, having drop through cash flow generation, all that's important. So one of the classic measures we use in what we call our Bowler charts, which are critical metrics to say how we're doing, is a vitality metric. And it's really about the percentage of sales that are coming actually in from products that were developed in the last 12 to 24 months. Sometimes we vary that metric based on the clock speed of the business. What we are trying to pivot more into, which I think becomes interesting as we think more about software, is what are these products generating for value return on the customer? And how much value does that open up the lens of the customer? So this product may actually create $1 billion worth of opportunity for X customer. How much of that are you converting? So that you think about what are the biggest problems you're solving for customers in the essence of how much value of either patient outcomes or dollars saved do you get at? And we're still early in that, but it's an evolution of thinking about vitality and, again, focusing on the big rocks, so to speak, the things that really move the needle.
And I would say we look at very similar things, which is not surprising given our similarities in terms of big multinationals. One thing that we have started looking at, which is sort of a different look of impact, is just thinking about access. And our goal as Abbott is to touch 1 out of every 3 people on this planet by 2030. So there's quite a bit of work we need to do to make that happen. So one of the things we're always challenging ourselves is, like, what good is technology if people don't have access to it? And that's always a lens that we're actually starting now, even early on the development side, to put that into consideration, because there's a lot of interesting projects and products and solutions that we could bring forward. And the challenge to my team is, like, what real impact will that have? And the way we've measured that, and we literally do measure every year, is just how many people have we touched? How many lives have we saved? How many people lives have we improved? Because at the end of the day, that's what we're here for. And if that's our true north, like, the business stuff will follow. And it's not to minimize the business stuff, because those are like table stakes. We absolutely have to do that. And innovation is the fuel to our industry. It's the fuel to our success as the medical device industry. But it's also so much more than that.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Pete. Yeah, super compelling in terms of how to think about innovation. So we have about 4 or 5 minutes left. Maybe for our last topic, maybe I would turn to neuro disease. That's a category where both of your companies are very active. Abbott with your neuromodulation business, and many folks have seen that with the new Alzheimer's drugs that are going to be hopefully coming out here soon, that a lot of those patients will be getting PET scans and other scans from GE and other imaging companies. Maybe that would be a good last topic. Can you each talk a little bit about innovation in the neuroscience space? And Pete, maybe we start with you. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's obviously, our history has been, many of our devices are focused on neurological, central nervous system imaging. Many play a critical role into actual surgical planning, into robotic systems for cordons and stuff of that nature. But what is evolving, obviously, is this point about new therapies. And I think it is one of the interesting areas that ties into what we do. And so, to your point about Alzheimer's, with both the drugs that are coming out, both from Biogen and ultimately Lilly, unlike other drugs that are out there, this is the interesting scenario that you're accompanying and needing devices, in our case, imaging, to assist in the delivery of therapy. And how does that play out? An amyloid beta plaque molecular imaging agent, which we make to identify the amount of plaque. It is actually imaged and quantified on a PET CT system. But when you actually deliver the therapy, after each delivery, you need to do an MRI to actually make sure there isn't actually swelling or bleeding that happens in a small percentage of the patients. That's a very different discussion than a drug that comes out and says, let's just put it through our normal infusion network. So at a hospital level, there's a broader discussion about where you're getting your image tracers. Is your systems capable of doing that? Do you want your patients to come downtown or go out in the suburb? Do you have the MR near them? And how do we help set that up? And so this is a big evolving part of, I'd say, our consultative play when something like a new neurological drug comes out.
Fascinating time in this space, and it's great to see the work that you're doing. Our focus has been more on neuromodulation and how do we use electroceuticals to make a difference in the lives of people with chronic pain and movement disorders. And so this area is going through a complete revolution, and part of it, I'm very proud of my team, because I think we're playing an important role there. And that specifically is, how do we get that therapy in the hands of the people who need it the most and meeting them where they are. So one of the things we did during the pandemic was be the first to market with what we call the virtual clinic. It's called the Neurosphere Virtual Clinic. And where it was a breakthrough is, for example, people with Parkinson's disease, there's, 100 centers. I'll just take the US, for example, around the centers of excellence. Well, there's people all over who have Parkinson's, right? And so what we were able to do that was expedited in the pandemic was actually meeting people where they are. Instead of having them come into the clinic, we can actually monitor and program their devices in a session from their living room. And so it's game changing for these people because they have challenges ambulating, moving around, coming in to see an expert might be a 4-hour drive away. It's time out of work. They have to come off their meds. And so I think there's a role for, whether it be diagnostics and imaging, therapeutics, whether it be neuromodulation. This is one of the sort of next, huge unmet needs we have within healthcare. And it's great to see so many companies going after it.
And you can see this combination, all these examples of drug, device, digital, and AI combinations around specific patient or customer problems and
Super
working
powerful.
back from that to solve them. And I mean, again, it's one of the great things about our broader industry. We're as well positioned as any to actually assist the delivery of that whole pathway.
Great. Well, thank you. We're at the end of our time. Just a big thank you to Pete and Lisa for sharing your thoughts on Gen AI and innovation. Thank you very much.